Hector Bravo, unhinged. Chaos is now in session.
Welcome back to our channels, Warriors. We are still growing. We have not stopped. You guys keep asking for it. You guys keep getting it. Another banger today, a former lieutenant, another one from the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation with a lengthy time and honorable service under his belt. We have today none other than Kenny. What up, Kenny?
How you doing?
Good, dude. How was your travels over here to San Diego?
It was a little crowded on the freeway than we're used to, because where I live now, we don't have no traffic.
Do you miss California?
No, except for my kids. Some of my kids are out here, our kids.
You don't miss the weather?
The weather, yeah.
The
ocean, and that's about it.
That's it?
That's about it.
That's pretty much why
the food, the Mexican food.
Oh,
I had menudo last night. I haven't had it, and you can't get menudo where I live.
You sent me the picture, man. That looked good, dude.
You can't get menudo where I live.
For sure. You like menudo or pozole better?
I like menudo. Okay. That's what I was raised on. That's what my grandma made, my mom.
Where were you raised at, dude?
I was raised in Madera, California. And I lived there a good portion, really a long portion of my life. I didn't get married till I was 33 years old.
You did not get married until you were 33?
I was 33.
God bless you, bro.
I waited, and it didn't work.
It did not work?
No, I got divorced. She divorced me while I was, that's part of the story. But anyway, I met my wife now 14 years ago. We've been almost 14 years of marriage.
I have come to the conclusion last night that marriage is a scam, bro, and no man should participate in it. This is coming from my experience.
Yeah.
And my experience is pretty fair and knowledgeable.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Here's the biblical thing. Whoever finds a wife finds a good thing, finds favor with God. And you just got to find the right one. The one I have now.
God bless you, man.
She was with me through chemotherapy and cancer, and never, you know, she was always by my side. And I'm thankful for God, because you don't know when you say till death do you part, or sickness and health,
right, that
they really mean it until it comes.
Right. Oh,
you know?
Absolutely.
You know, and so it, you know, I don't know what I'd do without her.
I'm grateful for you, dude. I'm glad. Is Madera Central California or Northern California?
Central.
Central?
Right. It's the heart of what they call the heart of California. It's right in the direct center of California, geographically.
I had no idea they called Madera the heart of California.
Yes. Yes. And there's a place on the Freeway 99. It's a tree, and it's the exact geographical center of California.
I thought maybe Los Angeles would be the unofficial heart of California.
No.
Everybody flocks there.
Yeah, no, it's Madera. In fact, their logo for the town is a heart.
Interesting, man.
Yeah.
Did you have any family members in the department that maybe gave you the guidance or awareness to want to join?
Absolutely not.
No. Wow.
You want to know why I joined the department?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I had a pretty wild childhood. I mean, I had a daughter that I didn't find until 32 years after she was born. She found me, actually, but I had a wild life. And then 25 years old, Jesus found me. None of us were looking for him, but he found me. And my life changed forever. And so I went from 25 to 33. I was working ministering to kids at the juvenile facilities in Madera, and then had a little ministry with the youth. And I went to Mexico to preach, of course, with an interpreter, because my dumb self, I don't speak Spanish.
You don't speak Spanish, man?
No, bro.
Man, Jimenez is your last name.
Well, listen, dude, when I was going to school, okay, I'm a lot older than you are. Speaking Spanish on the playground, you got in trouble.
By who?
By the teachers.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then 5-6 years later, they started a bilingual program.
Wow.
So go figure. But yeah, it was, you know, things were a lot different then.
You know, I read something recently or saw something recently that they were trying to erase people's heritages by doing that, eliminating people's languages out of culture.
They didn't want to, because they were giving an influx more and more of Hispanic people, of course. Not just through green card, but people were actually coming there, and then families were growing. You know, Mexicans, we breed fast. So
it was Alaska. It was Alaska that they were saying they didn't want those original people to be speaking that language. And they wanted to strip them from the native tongue.
I'm sad that I didn't keep that part of my heritage, but, you know, I can understand.
Yeah.
I can eat Mexican.
Menudo. So, how old were you when you joined the department?
Bro, I was 36 years old.
Oh, dude.
So here's what happened. When 25 to 33, when I got married, I was doing all that ministry stuff. So that was my focus. And I was working at a fiberglass insulation plant. Making good money, but I hate it, bro. I wanted to be Fresno Police Department. All my friends were in Fresno PD. So I wanted to go to the academy, but my then wife said, absolutely not, because we'll get divorced. I should have done it because we got divorced anyway.
Oh, come on, man. You know what I mean? I once had a Challenger that I traded in for a Highlander. And,
Yeah.
What are some of the dangers of working around fiberglass? It seems like pretty dangerous.
A lot of cancer.
Oh, man.
Like I can't attribute what happened.
You can attribute?
No,
you can't.
I don't think so. But I know a lot of friends that because there's a lot of chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
We would be cleaning this ductwork and take the stuff, put it in a bag, and they'd take it to a toxic waste dump. Go figure.
But, no freaking way, dude.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cal OSHA wasn't a thing, or just...
I don't know how they got away with that, but I had some pretty good jobs there. But my heart was always doing some type of police work, investigations and stuff like that. I always had that. My mom and I, growing up, we watched the shows, detective shows and all that. And I thought, well, someday I want to do that.
What were the shows back in the day?
I'm trying to remember.
Unsolved Mysteries, Cops.
No, like way before.
Way before that?
Yeah, but way before that, bro. Like,
Columbo?
The Streets of San Francisco. You don't know that. Carl Malden, the old guy. Different shows like that.
Okay.
So it was always kind of like what I wanted to do. So I suffered through that career because I had a family, doing that work, fiberglass. I had a family, I had kids, and I worked. I remember I was so exhausted because I would work 12-hour shifts and then work overtime. And I come home and I lost like 2 or 3 years because my son never slept. So I was up with him because I wanted to miss that. I didn't want to miss that time. So, but it was always wanting to get out of that. And one day I told my then wife, hey, what about Department of Corrections? Because we had a friend that worked at CCWF. Oh, that wouldn't be bad. So she agreed, and I went to the academy in 1998.
1998,
yes,
as
sir.
a 36-year-old man.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask me, hey, Hector, is it too old for me to join? And I tell them, no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
What would you say some of the perks of joining later on in life? My thing is you guys have wisdom already under your belt.
Yes, and the big fortunate happenings with me when I was at the academy is all my roommates were the same age.
Really?
We were very disciplined. We'd go to bed when it was time, get up in the morning at 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. The kids next to us stayed up all night doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and they would get mad at us because they could hear us getting ready in the morning.
Oh.
And I'd be like, hey, shut up in there. Hey, go to sleep when you're supposed to, fool.
Right.
But, we had that discipline. I learned that discipline from working, and my dad.
Absolutely.
My dad used to make me go work in the field, so.
Was it a 6-week academy?
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
6 weeks. Very intense 6 weeks.
At that time frame, looking back in hindsight, did that differ from when you were a sergeant at the academy?
Yes, and the reason I went back is because of the influence that the sergeants had on me that were there, my company commanders.
What kind of stuff were they leaving impressions, or how were they leaving impressions on you?
The most important thing is to go home at the end of the day, defend yourself. The alertness, they always wanted us to be alert. And just the discipline. The PT was a little bit more intense. We had PT when I was a sergeant. In fact, I led PT. I was in pretty good shape, even at, I was 50 years old. And so anyway, it was very intense, and they talked about a lot of their experience and the things about if you get into it with an inmate. They're used to fighting all the time. We're not. Right?
True.
I mean, they live like that.
True.
and especially like with weapons and all that. Who has a weapon? I don't carry a weapon, a knife, but so things like that, and it just made an impression on me. It was all about integrity and watching your partners and being disciplined, going to work on time, being a good relief, supporting your partners and that type of stuff. So it was a big influence on me. I wanted to be that. And so as I moved up on my career, I said, you know what, I'm going to do like those guys did, because it made an influence, because I have to admit, and I'm not, trying to, play a song for myself, but I had a pretty good career, and I attribute it to those guys.
Right now, the experiences and characteristics that you just described from your academy sergeant, it seemed to me that it was very simple, to the point, and focused around the bread and butter of corrections.
Yes,
right.
It was all about safety and security.
Safety and security.
Yeah.
Looking now at present times corrections, 2025, do you believe everything is chaotic because they have gotten away from that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's no, I'll give you an example. When I was going to the academy, 30% of the people were military.
Right.
Or ex-military. Of course, they wanted to double dip, get that. Someone had 20 years, and they wanted to get to 20 years.
Absolutely.
And so, so they had that discipline, and they had an effect on us too. And now, I talked to an academy administrator not too long ago. 3%.
3% military?
Yeah,
wow.
That's it.
Wow,
the rest of them, or he just told me they're just
Starbucks
kids that want to get a job.
That's okay, cool, perfect. We'll go off of that. Is working in corrections, man, a place just to go get a job?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Why?
Because you can't have that kind of mindset. Go to work and be safe and be. Let me give you an example. You remember when we had to do the run at the end of the academy,
Yeah.
and you had to pass.
Right.
You had 5 minutes and 15 seconds, or I can't remember exactly. But anyway, now they up the time of 30 seconds. So what does that tell you? Let's up the time 30 seconds. So we got, some guy that's a little slower. And then what I heard is they're trying to eliminate it, that time. So you just run, and maybe an hour later you come running in or whatever. I don't know what the whole timing is, but I think it's no time. And the reason being is there was the administrator from the academy told the sergeants, we have too many cadets that are failing, and we spend $45,000 just to get them through the academy. And one of the sergeants asked him, hey, wait a minute. So you're telling me that if I'm in the middle of the yard fighting with some inmate and he's stabbing me or whatever, I got some big tub of lard and he can't make it to me in time? So my life is not worth having those standards? That's what I'm disgusted about.
That's the difference between public safety and private. The public sector and the private sector. The public sector is able to get away with stuff like that because it's tax-funded money. There's already procedures, so they are able to lower standards and just kind of fill the cesspool.
Yeah.
What's more important, having the proper mindset or being physically fit?
Both.
Working in corrections?
Both. You have to have both. And you weren't around, but we used to have you had to take physical fitness tests when you were when you were already at the institution.
Physical fitness test?
Yes, sir.
Or the physical, annual physical?
No, you had to take a fitness test.
I didn't know that.
If you passed, you got extra money.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And you did a run, and there's some steps and all that kind of stuff. A lot of people wouldn't even take it. They said, forget the money. I'm just not going to do it. But I mean, you gotta be, fit, because when I was at the academy, like I said, I was an older man. And I did you have to qualify to do the physical fitness teaching. So I did. And we would run. I don't know if you remember, you'd run run the corners, run the straight, and then you do 220s, and then the 440s. Well, I'd beat 2/3 of my company.
Damn.
And I'd chew them out. What the heck's the matter with you guys? You're in your 20s, and I'm 50 years old.
Yeah.
How are you going to be ready to fight somebody if you're not in shape?
You and I both talk an awful lot about fighting inmates. Are we embellishing that, or is that the realities of working in a prison in California?
It's a reality. It's a reality because I've been in 2 or 3 different, hand to hand.
Right.
One dude punched me in the jaw, and my sergeant in the jaw, and we fought on the tier. And dude came out swinging.
Absolutely.
And because we told him, hey, sergeant wants to see you. Open this level 4 180. Opened the door, came out punching. Went to court, and they found him not guilty. I'm like, because they're trying to make it sound like we did it. But anyway.
I'd love to ask this question to former employees. One of them is, there's also a misconception that inmates do not attack staff for no reason. Is that true?
No. And there's sometimes you never find the reason. They have it inside of whatever their reasoning is. You might find out later, or find out from, some of your informants. You develop informants when you're working the units and stuff like.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't know why. Sometimes they're just
crazy.
They just go off, and especially on that 4-180, they lived in violence their whole life.
Right.
And so that's how they know how to solve things. So the horrible thing now about the Department of Correction is it's not a law enforcement agency anymore. It's political. It's a political agency.
Dude, that's profound that you said that. Now, let me ask you this. Is corrections a arena to be a political agency?
No. How do you play politics? How do you play politics with safety?
With lives.
And with somebody that's going to...
Human lives.
I was working in the gun tower and Manny Gonzalez got killed.
Where? In Chino?
No, I was a SATIF, but they made the announcement. Everything was locked down after that. And that hit me. That hit me really hard. In fact, I got on my knees in the observation booth on the yard. I got on my knees and just prayed and for the family and for the guys that I was working with, because you just never know. It just hit me really hard.
Did word travel about that incident?
Oh, like fast.
Fast? And everywhere?
Fast. I can't see. Yeah, I mean, once we heard it, it was a radio announcement at our prison.
No way.
Yeah, and then we everything was on lockdown.
What exactly did they put over?
Well, it's just like an honor type of thing.
Okay.
And then the sergeant called me, said, "Hey, everything's locked down," and they just. And you're not supposed to bring a cell phone into prison, but I had a cell phone up in the tower because I couldn't call my then wife if I was working overtime. But anyway, I called different people that I knew, and it got around fast.
Dude, what was the first institution that you started to work at?
SATIF.
SATIF?
SATIF Corcoran.
What is the makeup of that institution? The levels?
2 level 2 yards, dorms, and this is the dumbest design ever created by CDCR. If you work at Salinas or Pelican, you have a yard, and then there's a walkway, and then there's another yard. So you have a sister yard.
Right.
Something kicks off here they come.
Right.
Where I was at SATIF, level 4 180 by itself.
How close is your nearest help?
Probably about, I don't know, I'm trying to think, maybe a couple, 200-300 yards away. And then they have to come through the complex, go onto the patio, and then go onto the yard.
Was there a procedure for that? An alarm response protocol for that?
It was a protocol. When I first started, there was no protocol. We didn't have alarm response.
It was like a Royal Rumble.
We just had to handle it. When I first got to SATIF, let me finish. And then there's 2 level 3, 270s, Delta and Echo Yard. And there's the misnomer substance abuse treatment facility, F Yard and G Yard.
2 level 3 GPs?
GPs. Well, now.
At that time.
Yeah, at that time.
And this, what year? So you went to 1998. You probably touched down, what, 1998, 99?
Yeah, and 98, and then there's the FNGR, which are supposedly substance abuse. The state kind of, to me, they duped the federal government.
Imagine that, man.
Into getting money for a substance abuse program. Oh, and you know what's funny thing? Guess who worked for me in the kitchen? I did work in that yard for a little bit.
Who's that?
Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, he has sobriety under his belt, man. That guy.
Yeah.
So Robert Downey Jr. was your kitchen worker?
Well, he worked. It was a couple overtimes, but I remember him.
He was working in the kitchen?
Yeah. I yelled at him a few times.
What facility was he at? He was at that substance abuse?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting, man.
Yeah.
What was it like hitting those yards, dude? Like the real yards with the big boys?
That's where I stayed all my career, or that I was at SATIF, was on a level 4 180, because I just like that atmosphere of helping your partners, working through riots, working through all the stuff that was going on. We started out level 4 180, so we got all the Salinas garbage and Pelican Bay garbage, and so it was crazy. We had alarms. We had to pick which housing unit we ran to.
No way.
Yeah, because it's like there's 2 over there and 2 over here, and try to figure out
were they separate incidents? Meaning, okay, there's Code 3 riots where blacks and Mexicans kick it off, and it's blacks and Mexicans fighting in all the buildings, in the chow hall and on the yard. Were these like just separate incidents?
No,
they were all.
Sometimes it was a distraction for what was happening on the yard, but sometimes it was just separate incidents.
Okay,
and
chaos.
My first day, and you correctional youngsters, I hope you never run into the guy that I ran into. My first day, I walked on the yard as a yard cop. I had a 1 yard cop at S&E, and then you got the building, you got the gunner, 4 buildings on one side of the yard, big wall in between, and 4 buildings on the other.
Is it a wall or a gate in between?
It's a big wall.
Okay.
And then there's a wall, 2 gates for the patio for medical or school.
Is there an officer that mans those patio gates?
Gunners.
Oh, with buttons?
Yeah, up on top.
Oh, that's interesting.
But there's a patio cop that radios say, "Hey, I'm ready for the, for the education, or I'm ready for whatever." And so I get on the yard and I ask the guy, "Hey, what do I do?" He said, "You see those Bloods over there on the corner by the gym, and they're out of bounds. Go tell them to get in bounds." So I started to walk. I thought he was going with me. This fool sent me by myself. And these Bloods, their shoulders were bigger than my stinking calves or my thighs. And I looked up to him and I said, "Hey, you guys get back in bounds." They all kind of looked at each other like, "Who is this fool?" I said, "Okay, you never see me before. I'm new, whatever. You still got to get back in bounds, dudes.
Absolutely.
And I said, back then I really didn't know what to do, but I said, "Hey, you don't want to turn this to paper. You don't want me to write." And they looked at me, they said, "Why are you going to do that?" I said, "I'm not, but I want you to get back in bounds." I looked up to make sure the gunner was watching me.
Yeah.
And the gunner that we had was horrible. This fool would be asleep with his feet sticking out the window on a level 4 with the yards out. Anyway.
That was a test.
And so I walked back, and he was just standing there. He gave me the side eye, like, "All right, rookie, if you're a seasoned cop, don't ever do that to anybody. You teach that guy what you need to know and what they need to know, and then they're actually going to be more help to you later. What if you run into something,
right.
So I couldn't believe that. But it was we had some crazy people.
No, I like that you gave that experience and then said the right thing to do, because that's reality.
Yeah, don't. I know they're rookies, but
let me ask you this: from what you know, looking back in hindsight, do you think if you would have started getting your ass kicked, you think that guy would have helped you out, your partner? Like, is that why he felt so confident in telling you to go? It's just kind of whatever.
Those guys were back in those days. I'll tell you what used to happen. I didn't do it because I always thought, hey, if I have to do it, I'll do it. These dudes would go out on the yard, the shoe yards. So I heard.
Right.
And take an inmate out there, take their belts off, put it in a 4180 building. There's like a little triangle door to the outside, door to the shoe yard. So they would put their belt in that triangle and go take it, battle it out with the inmate. And there were some pretty bad dudes that I work with. I couldn't do that. I mean, I'm not going to do that.
Well, it's strategy, bro. Yeah, strategy, and you got to use your brain.
Yeah, and so, I just, I thought, well, what a crazy way to do things, but it was effective. Okay. It was effective.
Let me ask you this: it is not abnormal for us to have heard stories of COs taking off their belts and fighting inmates. That is not an abnormal story. But where do you see a happy median where we go from taking off our belts and fighting them to playing pickleball and softball and handball with them?
No. Why we got escapes, why we got so much violence, why we got violence against officers is they've taken away the line.
But would you agree that we don't necessarily, and this is me speaking with wisdom now, would you agree that we don't have to fight the inmates one-on-one without a belt to effectively do our job?
No. And I'll tell you what happened to me when I was working in a substance abuse building with my partner Gina. I don't know if you remember, but we talked.
Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah, and she was awesome. But I went to chow. She lets the inmates out, and then they come back, and then I come back. So I'm walking back, and I could see her face like something was wrong. I said, what the heck's going on? She said, some inmate come walking in, kicked my podium, and said my vagina stank, and you're a bitch, and he was giving it the...
What race was he?
He's black.
That was a trick question, man. I got to do my joke out there.
And so the sergeant was standing there, and he walked out. He didn't do nothing. I said, you got to be kidding me. He didn't back you up? No. I said, hey, open. It was 4 sections, 4 doors, and the inmates are housed in those sections. They're all in the day room. And I said, hey, call that inmate out. I remember his name was Gibson. And so she called him. I said, close all the doors. Mm-hmm. I took off my belt. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, come on, let's go. Mm-hmm. You don't talk to my partner like that. We don't do anything in here to disrespect you guys. We give you your program. You don't talk to her like that. So I took a step, and he backed up. I said, I got him. So I chased him, or literally around the podium. It's a big podium. And all the inmates in every section was standing up watching me. I said, get out of here. Go back to your unit. Well, and all the blacks got around him, and they took him. I don't know what they did to him, but they probably tuned him up a little bit. But I called all the MAC reps, and I said, hey, I'm going to go right now and start tearing up rooms, right? And I said, you ain't going to do that in this building, especially for her. And I had a white inmate. It was the funniest thing. This is where I got my nickname. I'll tell you my nickname. He's sitting there, and he goes, ay, cabrón, es un pinche diablo.
Told you that?
Yeah. And just not, kind of in a joking way.
Yeah.
He goes, dude, you're something else. I said, hey. Anyway, well, that was my name when I was at SATIF, was Diablo. And I made him stop calling me that because I said, hey, dude, I'm debriefing.
Yeah.
And I can't go to church and tell my pastor I'm Diablo.
Right.
So, but yeah, I agree that you do not have to do things like that. But you do have to stand your ground.
I really want to dive more into what we are talking about right now.
Yeah.
Because I have also been in the same exact situation as you, 2007, level 4 GP. But how can we convey the message to these new cops that you cannot do that anymore? You probably couldn't have done it back then, but you still need to stand your ground within policy, procedure, and common sense.
Stand your ground, be respectful, because you can get discourteous treatment of an inmate now. With the body-worn cameras, they hear everything you say, which that's another thing. That's horrible. Cops on the street, they don't turn their body cameras on until they go to an incident.
Right.
And it's taking away the ability for cops to talk to each other about stuff. You know what I mean? But anyway, so Yeah, it's yeah.
Or realistically, is it? Let me ask you this: an honest question: is it impossible for correctional officers to survive in this climate?
It's impossible for them to survive in the way that we used to survive. You don't understand what I'm saying? Because the line has been erased. You're playing pickleball. I saw one where the guy was popping the dude's neck.
Oh yeah.
I saw one where a guy had his hand on the officer's shoulder talking to him like he was their buddy. So what? And all of a sudden we worry about escapes. That's why the whole thing, the California model of teaching it to me at the academy, has marred the line because we have to remember who they are. We have to remember. I'm not saying, yes, there's people that got to prison for, and they just messed up in life and all that. But you also have to remember who you're dealing with. Some dude may be acting like your friend, and all of a sudden he's got a cuff key and he's running down the street and an escape.
Or stabbing you in the neck.
You just don't know.
Should young officers trust inmates?
No. Here's the thing. I had dozens, especially in ISU, of informants. A lot. Did I trust them? Heck no. When I was in ISU, I had an informant, and I said, I'm going to listen to his phone calls. Guess what? I got a $12,000 drug bust because his mom was bringing in stuff. I didn't trust him.
Should young correctional officers try to befriend inmates in an attempt to not be victimized?
No.
Why?
Because then, once you do that, once you let that door open, then you got to, if the door's open.
Yeah.
Keep the door closed.
Keep the door closed.
Keep it closed because just like an ant can find just a little crack to get in to your house, that's the same thing. That inmate will do what he can to manipulate you and get in through the crack.
Is it the role of a correctional officer to punish inmates?
No, okay. So they already got their punishment.
Correct.
Right? They got their punishment. They got to serve out. But it's our role to keep them disciplined. Because you have to remember.
Disciplined or enforcing the rules?
Enforcing. And then, of course, as lieutenants, we do the disciplinary hearings.
Right.
And, you have to remember these guys are, especially level 4 180s, they're in prison because they don't know how to live life on the street without being in trouble. So they need a structure in their life. And that's why when you're working with them, as long as you're respectful, as long as you keep the line there, as long as you're not afraid to shoot, as long as you're not afraid to use your spray, your baton, you set up like a boundary for them. And they are good at staying within those boundaries because they have their own structure, their own things they have going on. You have to maintain that. You have to maintain that.
I'm going to ask you a question from the perspective of a new CO that doesn't know anything. Hey, LT, people keep talking about this line I should be having between me and the inmate. What the hell is the line?
What you know and what you read. Take that Title 15 out. Read the Title 15. Know your procedures. Know your inmates. The more knowledge you have, find somebody who's got some time in. That's what I did. I was real fortunate because I had guys after the first full who really helped me. I had a friend named Mark, and I watched that guy stand there. Of course, there was always a distance, but he would take them inmates from being jacked. I'm not locking up. I'm not doing this. And he would start talking to them. Hey, listen, I want to see the sergeant. He goes, I'm going to call the sergeant. It's going to be a mad sergeant. You're going to take him away from his coffee and his donuts, and he's going to listen to me.
Right.
I'm going to be the one that's going to tell the story. That's a difference now, too, between supervisor you got. And he would just take him. He goes, I'm going to work on your bed move, but you've got to give me time because I got a lot of stuff going on. And he would take that dude down to calm. All right, man, lock it up. And the dude would lock it up. That guy was perfect at doing stuff like
That's
that.
verbal judo. How important is effective communication working in a prison?
It's everything. It's everything. And I've even, when I used to take my cadets on cosets, I would take them over to an inmate and I would tell them, hey, would you tell them what's the best thing you can do to when you're working? He said, hey, be respectful, maintain your distance, and, communicate to them in a way that they can understand. And just like my friend, just take them down,
Right.
And then, but if they don't want to go there, and it's time to tussle, it's time to tussle.
Speaking of tussling, do you believe that there are correctional officers that don't have it in their mind that are prepared for that tussle?
Well, I'll give you an example. I have a cadet, ex-cadet that works at the academy. He had a female cadet, and at the academy now, they have role players. You dress up in an orange jumpsuit, and you have pads on, and you have to goad the officer in, not goad, but you do something for them to react. So the sergeant walks up over to the female, punches her in the stomach or in the chest, and she starts crying. Okay? And he said, look, maybe she suffered violence when she was younger. I got to be sensitive. Took her aside. No, she didn't. She just was upsetting to her. So next scenario, she's laying on the ground. The sergeant straddles you and he starts like punching you, and you have to work your way out of it. And she just flails her arms and starts crying. Well, he writes a lieutenant, and he says, well, just put it in her file. The institution knows about it. How are you going to send somebody like that? If you and I, Hector, and we need some help, and some inmates there, and she starts crying, what help is that going to be?
You just reminded me of a similar incident that I took part in as an alarm response instructor at Donovan, Charlie Yard. Same role playing, same scenario. I was the inmate, the officer. Hey, I'm going to see how close I can get to you and how aggressive I can get before you actually utilize a use of force option. I was in this officer's face, cocking back, and nothing. I had a piece of paper in my hand. I crumpled it and I threw it at his face, and he sprayed me with it. I said, really? You guys don't need to get assaulted to utilize force. I said, did I have to throw a piece of paper at your face to get a reaction out of you?
Yeah.
None of this shit gave you a fucking an alert that you were about to be assaulted.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me tell you a funny story. I think I told you when you and I talked. When I was at the academy, I trained my guys that way. I did it in the classroom. We weren't in the gym or anything. But anyway, at the end of the academy, they have like a contest, physical stuff, report writing, alarm response. And so anyway, I was busy doing something else with one of the other contests. Well, I went to go check on my guys, how they doing. And one of the tactical sergeants was like, dude, your cadets, because you were supposed to respond, do a radio call, give the warning to get down, and then fight.
Yeah.
He said, your cadets don't do nothing. They just run in there and they figure they're going to kill somebody, and then they'll call on the radio afterwards. He said, dude, they're going to survive. And I just told him, hey, look, you got to do what you have to do to go home at the end of the day. That's the most important thing. This job ain't nothing. It's not that important.
Facts. When did you get into ISU for the first time as an officer?
I was on the facility C, and I worked on the yard and at the control booth, and I worked in the gun for a long time. 157 less lethal shots, too many 14s. That's why I got hearing aids, because my ears were blown out.
Where'd you shoot the mini to? The ground?
Yeah. Well, the first time I had 6 months.
What was the incident?
The first time I got duped into, well, I didn't get duped. This guy says, hey, I'm in the gun. You're the S&E, but I want to be on the ground. Sarge says we're going to redirect. So he put me up in the gun.
He must have knew something was going to happen, dude.
And so I looked and said, man, there's so many, right? The blacks were all grouped up. So all of a sudden in front of the building, the fight started. Inmates were fighting officers. And so all the rest of the blacks started running that way. So being the guy in the other observation, I was in the corner because my yard was not out. And we both put it on the ground.
Was it a staff assault?
Staff. It was a staff assault. It was, the whole yard was going to attack staff. And I had an inmate, I put the shot in the ground, and he said, hey, let's go. They can't shoot all of us. So guess what I did? I got on my knee and pointed at the one dude that said that, because I said, well, you're going to be the first one.
One of the inmates actually shouted, let's go. They can't shoot all of us?
Yep. Yep.
I mean, that just goes to show you the mentality.
Well, whatever issue they had, the captain was out on the yard. And as soon as it started, this fool ran off like a chicken. But
of course he did.
Yeah. But so it's quelled it right then and there. And and then the second time I shot the mini.
Real quick, I want you to give your perspective of, you chamber around, you pick a location in the dirt, you fire the round, everything stops, people get down?
Yeah, people go down right away. Both of us shot at the same time.
Restraint operations start happening? They start putting handcuffs on people?
No, it just, they were down, and we waited for, it was a radio call. It took forever, but I just stayed on my knee on the catwalk, and I had my sights pointed at. If they would have got up, I probably would have shot a person, you know. And they got down, and they understood that we meant business. It wasn't just for nothing.
Absolutely, 100%. And the funny thing is, policy has not changed since you fired that shot.
Yeah.
Did ISU go up there and retrieve that weapon?
Yeah. I had to get the round, dude. 6 months in the department, I picked that round. My hand was shaking because, you know, it was intense.
Which round? The casing?
Yeah. 223. And so I had to give the gun to him. And
hopefully you put it on safe, man.
And I put it on safe, took it out, you know. So I handed it to him. And
did you at that time feel that you were going to be in trouble?
No. And I had some older cops that said, hey, man, you and I think his name was Mora, was the other guy. He goes, you saved us, man, because we wouldn't have been fighting. There was only 2, 4, 6, 8. So 11 people with all the inmates that were out.
I just need to stress and emphasize the importance of utilizing the Mini 14 per policy in a life or death situation like that. Because there is no telling. Let me ask you a simple question. Can 50 inmates kill 3 officers?
Oh, absolutely. Second time I shot, that was the scenario.
What was the scenario?
I was up in the gun. Some of the staff were coming for shift change I hadn't been relieved yet, so I was standing there. And there was a alarm, what they used to call a bad handoff. You remember that? Where the cop would give them the alarm,
false alarm,
and boom, hit it accidentally to the relief. So the sergeant went over to clear it. But during the time when the yard was up, put the yard down. Everybody get out, a big loudspeaker. And there was 2 or 3 Southerners that they wouldn't get down. They were just kind of walking around. They finally got down. And so when it was over, yard was still down. They didn't get up till I said get up. And cops went over and said, hey, you guys need to get down. So they started jawing. They were, what the F you, and they said, hey, let me see your ID. We're not giving you your ID. Okay, cuff up. So they went to cuff them up. They jumped up. But here's the thing, and I want to tell, look at the camera and tell you youngsters, you have to find out and know wherever you're working, who is who. I saw the shot caller get up. So what happens?
Everybody gets up.
Everybody gets up. If I didn't know that, I knew. And then I knew in my mind, because I had played the scenario 100 times.
Absolutely.
what I was going to do. It's just like say you're playing center field in baseball. You're ahead 3-1. And there's a runner on second. Get a base hit. Hey, if I get a base hit, I'm throwing it to second because I don't want that guy to get in scoring position. Who cares if you don't do that ahead of time, you're going to be slower to react.
100%.
When you're on your commute to work, think about the scenarios. Think about, hey, what if this happens? What if an inmate hits me in the face? What if an inmate throws a tray at me? What if an inmate does this? What if an inmate attacks my partner? What if I'm in a gun and somebody's stabbing some dude to death, an inmate's in a day room.
In the eyeball.
Stabbing dude to death.
2 minutes.
As soon as they start stabbing him, as soon as the first stab wound hits, and that dude's kind of like not fighting back.
Yeah. Or when you start seeing a lot of blood, that's a good indicator.
And nobody is going to crucify you. You might go through the ringer.
But that's why they pay you $150,000 a year.
I was a DVI. I was actually the California Gang Task Force.
Real quick on the Sureños or Mexicans, they jumped up.
All of them, 60, and there was 3 cops. And my buddy Steve, I'll give a shout out to him, Steve Rivera. This dude's, I don't know how, 6'3", maybe 6'2", big Mexican dude. His hands are about that big as two of mine. The shot caller ran right towards him. He had no equipment. He just kind of measured him up. Boom. One shot, and the dude was out.
Who was out?
The shot caller. Knocked out on the yard. Boom. Because we seen it later on the videotape. But he had to do what he had to do. And all the surrenders, as soon as I fired the shot, right in front of them.
Yeah.
Boom, they got out. And
so what was the scenario that you ran through your head prior? Hey, if my
that type of thing, if the yard gets up and they're going after my partners, shoot.
Right.
Could I justifiably say that I thought their life was in danger?
100
60 inmates and 3 or 4 or 5 cops, maybe? Absolutely.
And common sense and experience tells you they all got fucking weapons at their ass.
Actually,
or in their fucking waistband.
The 2 of them that were running that direction had weapons on them.
Of course they did.
And so when I fired, they all got down. And I was given a couple of days off by the captain. I was allowed to take holidays just to, chill. And everything was fine. I cleared both investigations because I did what policy said.
What would you say if I was a brand new young officer right now, 24 years old, 2 years under my belt, and I look at you in the eyes and I say, yeah, that's all fine and dandy, but they're going to burn me if I shoot the Mini 14 when inmates are attacking my partner?
I mean, if they're scared, tell them to go to church. Don't go to church. Go to church, man, if you're scared. If not, go to work at Starbucks.
There ain't no shame in that.
There's no shame. Don't be in a place. What if your partners need you?
They will need you.
That's why I shot all the shots that I fired. Here's what happened. Because we didn't have help on that yard.
Right. You just explained that earlier.
I told the cops, I said, let me do what I can do first. I had those, I think it was a 205. It was a long range, 150 yards. I broke a Norteño's leg with that thing in a riot.
The what?
It's a CN gas round. And it was shaped like a little rocket. And that thing would go forever.
Was that 37 millimeter?
Yeah. No, 40. Well, 37 and then the 40. And I grew up with the 37, and then we switched to the 40. And I just said, look, I'm going to shoot gas. I'm shooting with the impact. I'm going to do whatever I need to do. I shot a lot of guys with the impact. I broke some bones. One guy had to have surgery because it broke his arm. And 2, I said, don't respond until you let me do what I need to do. Because then, what if it turns to lethal? And then I end up shooting again. I've racked around, and a lieutenant said, "Hey, you got to write a report."
Did you feel totally confident in your abilities to articulate why you shot those Mini 14 rounds per policy and procedure?
Oh yeah, because you got to know policy. You got to know the use of force policy. You have to know that. You can do your job. I don't care what a captain or an AW says or even a lieutenant, because I had a lieutenant say, hey, we racked around, you got to write a report. I said, really? I said, when I drop my baton and don't hit anybody, do I have to write a report?
Or pull your pepper spray.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not advising people to start racking rounds, but
No.
Situations dictate.
If you know in that scenario, whatever happens, then rack it. And then if it continues, then shoot it. I stopped because the dude got down.
Yeah.
And he was running right towards one of my partners. And I said, no, I'm not having that. And I said, but you got to know those guys. How would I know? Oh, I would be scared because the lieutenant told me to write a report. I told the lieutenant, I just told him, hey, that's not policy.
Would you agree in this statement that there are managers and some supervisors that are advising cops to do things that violate policy, and when confronted, they're going to deny those accusations?
Yeah, because, they will. I know that for a fact, and I know that for a fact. But you still have to do what your job entails.
Right.
And that's what I, tell people, hey, look, whatever your actions are with your partners or with yourself, go home at the end of the day. Could you get fired for hitting an inmate in the head with a baton if he's trying to stab you? Maybe. But you'll get your job back. You'll go to SPB. You know that I don't think it's like, I forget the number now, but it used to be like 75% of the cases that went to SPB, they overturned it. The judge said,
probably way more than 75%.
The judge said, yeah, you shot the Mini 14 and you hit an inmate in the head because he was stabbing another inmate, and the inmate was,
lifeless.
Yeah,
defenseless.
lifeless. And, so you have to know, you have to study and know. And then if somebody has an incident, see what they write. Look, you're not going to do it for them. You're just going to look and say, oh, yeah, that's pretty good verbiage. Maybe I ought to use that if I ever get into that trouble. Don't just go to work, drink your coffee, sit down. Oh, we'll get the inmates out and kick back and do nothing. Yeah, you gotta read.
Did you get on ISU at SATIF?
Yes. After that gun, I went to SATIF, ISU at SATIF as an officer. And that was a great experience. I had great partners. Shout out to my partners.
What roles or responsibilities did you have in ISU?
I had actually started with a female partner. I was her partner on the 4-yard. And I thought, well, what do you mean? You don't want me to deal with the Mexicans? You want me to do the blacks and the whites, or the blacks and the others? What's up with that? And then I started seeing things. She would walk around the yard talking to some of the Sureños by herself.
And she was in her black patches.
Yeah, which is, you and I know that a Sureño, if sees another Sureño walking, talking to an inmate, he can stab him right then and there. He don't need permission.
100%.
So I just watched that, and I began to kind of complain a little bit, tell her, you shouldn't be doing stuff like that. Oh, no, I could walk across the yard and they wouldn't hurt me. I'm like, oh, my goodness. They've already got you.
So here you are, an ISU cop, trying to do your job, but at the same time you have this female partner who is over-familiar with inmates.
Absolutely.
Were you in a conflict?
Yeah, because,
Or were you conflicted, I should say?
I was conflicted because, I didn't know everything. Maybe she's got it like that. I don't know. Maybe it's inexperience. She didn't have that much time in 2-3 years, maybe. And so anyway, I was switched. No, actually, I was switched to the level 4 SNY.
So they switched you and not her.
Yeah. And I did search warrants, got bust, but it didn't happen until I got a call from a guy by the name of Mike Ruff. He was the chairman of the California Gang Task Force. He was like a senior special agent or something. Rang on my ISU phone, and I'm like, what the heck? What number is that? 916. He says, hey, this is Mr. Ruff, and he said, I heard you got a dirty partner. And I said, yeah, it just seems overfamiliar. He goes, look, some of my agents have said that she said she would never testify against the Mexican Mafia ever. And they just think she's dirty. And he goes, I got undercover people in there. I got, SSU agents, and I got other. And he said, could you write down and then send it to this person? I didn't know who it was. Send it to this person in Sacramento. And I said, you know what's going to happen? They're going to come after me and not her. He said, oh, well, we have protection, whistleblower protection. And that's not going to happen. Yeah, okay. And so I did it. As soon as I did it, send it in a fax. I began to get bust after bust after bust after bust. I sent a bunch of people to prison and put more time on inmates. Probably, I don't know, maybe 75 years worth of time or more. And one inmate got 25 to life.
As a result of dope?
Yeah, as a result of dope.
What were they doing?
Conspiracy
Visiting?
to bring in. And this fool told me, hey, told my partner, you'll never catch us. And I caught him. But he was a serial child molester on a SNY yard. And so for me, probably one of the best things that ever happened to me.
What were some of the ways that dope was coming in at that time?
One lady had a pair of panties sewn and had a pocket, and she put the torpedoes of dope in there, and they'll look about this big, and then just carried it in. That was they used their kids.
Staff also?
I never dealt with staff, because that's not our job. That's a misconception of other officers that ISU are investigating other officers. We can't do that. It has to be a sergeant or above. If it's a sergeant, it has to be a lieutenant on up.
Mailroom?
Huh?
The mailroom? Legal mail for dope?
Yeah, they do that. One guy, this officer in the control booth calls me. He says, hey, listen to this phone call. And I'm listening to it. And basically what he's telling his girlfriend, just get some meth and then happy cards, they called them. And they soak a paper card with no coating on it. And then dry it, send it in. So I got him, and his name was Wainwright. Got him for 6 years.
And this was on an SNY yard.
Well, the one that I got for the paper, he was on the level 4 yard.
GP.
Yeah, GP. And so I was kind of like, hey, stuff happened. Sometimes it happened. I would catch a case, but I know that old partner that I had, she was hiding stuff from me as far as the Sureños, And
but how was she acting towards the rest of the team of ISU? I mean, I know from what I've seen, the ISU always kick it with each other. They're in the office bullshitting. They walk together. Were they embracing her? Was she welcome?
They kind of knew.
Right.
Your intuition knows. So after that happened, Internal Affairs called me. So I had to go interview. Now, like I told them, I don't know for sure. I do know that and we'll go to this case. There was a guy by the name of Sugar Beltran from King Cobras. Just when Artie Guzman was the shot caller next door at Corcoran. But he was a shot caller for Facility C. And Sugar Beltran had different kind of politics. And there were some of the Sureños that were on the mesa that really didn't like the way he dealt with things. Like if I was going to discipline you, I'd make you do 500 burpees, and I thought, instead of tuning you up, and you got to pay a fine. So it was his way of making money and then sending it.
Some of the members were doing those type of consequences,
and they didn't like it. So
they would be paying off their whatever trouble they got into.
Oh yeah, their drug debt, whatever else. But anyway, a guy by the name of Triste Acosta, he he informed on Beltran, said, "Hey, he's got dope. He don't trust nobody. He keeps dope in the house." And he was housed with another guy named Little Trigger and Contreras, I think his name was. So the yard, not ISU, the yard, because here on Charlie Yard, on the wall, there's a mental health building. So Acosta was working in there. So they would go from the back, talk to him. So they rushed the cell, and they got dope, and he basically got housed in ADSEC, him and his cellie.
What did the rushing of cells look like? Explain to the crowd, because that practice went away throughout time.
Yeah, basically, you kind of time it. You hit the rotunda, and then you just start to run, and the cop opens the door, and all these people rush until them get down.
Did that create adrenaline for you?
Oh yeah, but I was in the gun, you know.
Yeah, but I'm sure you partook.
When you do stuff like that, yeah,
Correct.
you just it's an adrenaline rush because you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
Anyway, they got the drug bust, and he went to ADSEG. Well, a little while went by, and the non-contact booths were in the level 4 section, and they had set up a hidden camera. There's no cameras in the booths, but they set it on the podium where the cops stood, and they hid it. So he spells out Acosta's name. Kill him. On video. So when I asked my old partner, what happened to that video? It should be in evidence. Oh, well, it doesn't work anymore. What do you mean it doesn't work anymore? You took it from the camera. You're supposed to put it directly into the evidence. So anyway, and then I started thinking, wait a minute. Acosta's on the mesa. You got to have proof if you're going to stab somebody like that. Because they went to stab him in the housing unit, and that's when my partner Barnaby Torres, my buddy, he's my friend. 2 guys were stabbing Acosta as soon as he came out of the cell, and he killed one of them. Shot one of them in the lower back, and shot and killed him. Didn't stop it.
It didn't stop it?
No. The other guy was still stabbing. So that tells you what the orders were. You go until you die. Or we're going to kill you if you don't. So the guy kept stabbing, but the staff, Torres said he was going to shoot the other guy, but he heard the king and the cops were coming in, and he said, I always told him not to do that, but I didn't want to shoot because if it ricocheted, I could hit staff. So
let me break it down. Acosta informed on the shot caller.
Yes.
The female ISU knew that there was evidence, video footage of him giving the green light and the order, made the video disappear miraculously, which it does happen in the California Department of Corrections, the Rehabilitation. Let me put emphasis on that. And then they fucking stabbed the shit out of Acosta in the housing unit.
Yeah, and he lived.
He lived?
He lived.
Did he go SNY?
He did eventually.
Is he still around, do you know?
No, he died.
Oh, he died. Good.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to have to fucking bleep out his name.
He died.
I'm lazy, man. But
he died.
No, not good that he died, but when you said the name earlier, I'm like, fuck, am I going to have
He had
to
a hot shot. And they ended up giving him a hot shot. But
yeah.
Anyway, so, but as you and I know, as lieutenant, they're probably going to kill Acosta. What do we do with him?
Lock his ass up?
Well, no, they didn't do that. Which to me, is a violation of his civil rights.
Or bring in fucking Acosta and interview him. Hey, man, we got credible information. You're about to get fucking, you're done, dude. No, I'm not. Well,
I didn't do that either. And I believe I heard that later on he told her, hey, you knew it was going to happen and you didn't do anything? I'm just saying. Yeah. And so that to me was like, I thought, man, that's a civil rights, that's a violation of the color of law statute.
Let me ask you this, man, because you're a wise individual. You're a man of the Lord. How did that make you feel? At that time, dude, I could only imagine you were going through it.
I was conflicted, and once I informed, I knew that they were going to come after me. I even hid the paper because I thought, you know what, they're going to do a search warrant, come in my house. And I hid it behind a picture, and I said, you know what, I don't know what's going to happen to me, but I know they're going to come after me because there's an AW that was over ISU, and he said, he always told us, you ever go against the unit, I will ruin your career. And that's what they tried to do. They put me under an investigation. She had an investigation, but they cleared her. First of all, you're guilty of destroying evidence. Where's it at? Whether it works or not, it should be in there.
Facts.
And
oh, so what was her fucking lame excuse that it didn't work, so she threw it away? Yeah, whether it works or not, it should still be in there.
well, yeah, it should have been in there from the get-go. And how would you know it doesn't work if you put it directly in the evidence, right?
Well, yeah, that's common sense. So, I mean, yeah, it's evident. It's very evident that she was corrupt.
They put me under investigation, but here's the thing. I was good at what I did investigating. I'm not tooting my own horn. So don't put an investigator under investigation because he's going to investigate.
100%.
I've been investigating for the last 17 years.
There you go, man.
And so when this all stuff was happening, it was hard. They took me out of ISU.
How soon after did they remove you from ISU?
As soon as I talked to Internal Affairs.
No, fuck.
But they were trying to burn me too. I had several times where I had a confidential that I gave to a captain. The two brothers might be enemies because one believed that the other one told on him on a search warrant that I did. So the captain signed it, and then I gave it to the CC2. Okay, and the sergeant came to me. And he said, "Hey, I think you're in trouble." I said, "Why?" "Because you didn't move these guys." I said, "I'm ISU. Do I work on the yard? Am I the sergeant? Am I the officer?" "No, I gave it to the number one man on the yard, the captain, and I gave it to the CC2.
Yeah, you did your job.
So, you guys out there, you got to know you got to know what procedure is if they try to dupe you on something.
Yeah, you notify the sergeant. You know, if notified the sergeant, you're done.
And
But you got to document it.
Yeah, I had it documented, and I don't do bid moves. I'm an ISU.
Right.
I don't work on the yard. Anyway, so the pressure came more and more. And one day I got a call. I was out watching my son's soccer practice. It was from the DA and a friend of mine, great guy, Ty Ford, shout out. Works now in Orange County defending cops on shooting and stuff like that. Well, anyway, get a call. They're trying to send you to prison. And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "They say you were having sex with an inmate in ADSEG, the one that you just put 6 years on, and you're coming up on his mother's trial." Oh, man, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, they're trying to send me to prison. What are these people doing? It felt like, remember how you felt when they put the search warrants on you?
Yeah.
That's the way I felt. And in fact, my ex-wife was like, "I think I'm leaving because I don't know what they're going to do to you."
Right.
She already had an agenda anyway. She was going to leave. But anyway, so a friend of mine, they did the same thing to him because he told Internal Affairs about her dealings. Ryan Couch, he's not afraid for me to say. He was
the warden at the time, would he later be a secretary of the department?
no, he was a captain.
Or he was a captain at that time?
And then the warden was a guy by the name of
I was
Ken
just wondering
Clark.
what position that dude was in at that time.
Yeah, he was Ken Clark. Was the warden, and Kathy Allison was the acting warden.
Shout out to Kathy Allison,
yeah.
man. She let us fucking go through hell at Donovan.
Yeah, anyway, I got all these charges of letting an inmate make an illegal phone call, conducting surveillance on inmate visitors, and I'm like,
All because you blew the whistle on a dirty ISU cop.
yeah, it's retaliation, right?
100%.
And because now you exposed me, you pulled my covers, and now I got to do something.
From your angle, I think you just mentioned a little bit. You expose me, you pull my covers. Do you think the managers were just trying to hide a black eye from the department?
They're trying to hide their dealings with the mafia, I think.
They were trying to hide their dealings with the mafia?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah. And here's the thing. There's a cost. There's a cost. When you
100%.
do the right thing, it's always going to cost you something. And but here's the thing: when they were doing all that, my buddy and I went to a law firm, Morrison and Forster, and at that time was the biggest law firm in the United States. And they took our case pro bono, and they sued CDCR. The lawsuit named the people, 3 people involved. One of them was the person you named as far as later on would be the secretary. The other one was AW, and the other one was the ISU cop. And it was under a RICO statute. And our fair speech, our abilities to, as a public servant, to our First Amendment rights, to speak out if it was against, whoever. They were, in other words, the department were trying to push down our free speech rights. It has to be, I forget what the statute is, but it has to be above and beyond your normal ISU duties, which it was. Who investigates staff being dirty? Administration being dirty.
Right. Supposed to be the FBI, but actually supposed to be Office of Internal Affairs, but they're in bed with the administration.
Later on.
Well, I want to just commend you and credit you, dude, for blowing the whistle, because that's what that is, blowing the whistle at that point in time, man.
Yeah.
That couldn't have been easy to do the right thing.
It helped me because it helped me be stronger as far as knowledge, even more knowledge in the department. If something bad happens to you and you're under investigation, then study more and know more, because they're going to try to do crap to you and you don't have to take it.
But I know the personal feeling of when the veil gets lifted and you realize your own department is corrupt. It's not a good fucking feeling. It's a punch to the gut, dude.
When it was all said and done, I cleared everything. And I forgave those people. Jesus forgave me of my sins. He said, if you don't forgive, then, I'm not going to forgive you. But he forgave, so I forgave. Even that AW, I had a friend that passed away, went to his funeral. I walked right up to the AW, shook his hand, because 2 things. I wanted to know, hey, I forgive you. And 2, I'm still here, dude.
Right.
I'm still here.
Standing tall.
I'm still working, and what you tried to do to me didn't work. So I forgave, because, it's good to have forgiveness. Not just for them, but mostly for yourself. It's like a burden to just
Absolutely.
goes away.
Not having any resentment.
I had a story. I had a Medal of Valor, and was nominated for another one, and so I just said, hey, you know what? There's nothing you can do to me. First of all, and here's the thing. While I was going through all that, they were trying to send me to prison. God gave me a scripture, Jeremiah. He spoke it to my heart. He said, they'll fight against you, right? But they won't prevail, because I'm with you to deliver you. And I hung it on the side of my bed, and they didn't prevail. They didn't prevail at all. And so when all that was happening, I bid the first watch, and I was at the hospital most of the time because I lived in Fresno, so I went to the hospital. In fact, the sergeant down the yard got mad at me. He said, I'm going to pull your bid and all that because you've only been here 6 days out of the whole year. I said, you can't anyway, so I'm not worried about it.
Right.
So I promoted. They stopped me from promoting the first time.
How?
Because I called the Avenal. Because there was a custody captain. It used to be a lieutenant at SATIF. He said, well, I want to hire you, but I can't because there's this thing with the ISU or something going on. And so I didn't. And then so I waited.
Real quick, to the viewers out there, maybe new correctional officers that haven't seen this quite yet. Does the department block promotions, transfers, special assignments?
Yeah. The transfers. Hey, and they even do transfers that they're not supposed to do. Look at the people at CCWF that had to suffer through all that.
True. No, but they do block.
Oh, absolutely.
Through illegal means.
Oh, absolutely.
Frivolous investigations.
Yeah, frivolous investigations, all kinds of, word of mouth.
Word of mouth, smutting people's names up.
Smutting their names up and doing all that. And then, I'm just amazed at what the department does to people in their career.
That do the right thing.
That do the right thing. It's horrible. I mean, both my buddy and I had to go through all that.
Do you think the department, the upper management, actually favor people that are more moldable and willing to jeopardize their ethics and values?
Well, yes, right now there's a lieutenant at CCWF, more experience than all kinds of people, but they won't promote her to captain because she's too outspoken.
She doesn't play the game. She doesn't drink the Kool-Aid.
She's too outspoken, and I'm just glad that I was able to promote away from. That's the worst institution I've ever seen. Seriously, SATIF.
I don't think so.
I thought, oh, dude, it's horrible. You don't know. We're not even done with all this stuff. You want to know the stuff that I know about SATIF?
You got any more juicier than that, or as juicy?
Oh yeah, we had supposedly a confidential was found on an inmate's phone, but not the confidential like he's taking pictures off the computer screen. They knew the number of building 3. The person's, from what I understand, the person's name that confidential, one of them died, was killed next door at Corcoran 1.
Jesus Christ, dude.
And that person was allowed to retire. That was kind of the person they investigation. Because here's the thing. They said, it was a shared computer. So we don't really know who got on there, which is bullcrap. Because I know I had ITs do forensic work when I was a lieutenant at DVI.
Explain to these newer cops, what is the difference between a good cop and a bad cop? Meaning, hey, it's okay to utilize a Mini 14 per policy and procedure when it meets the deadly force criteria versus do not give inmates confidential information that's purposely going to get other people killed. You
should, if you do that, if somebody dies, you should go to prison for the rest of your life.
100%.
And so I kind of, that person retired. Well, why wasn't that information turned over to the FBI? And I know the department does that. You know why? When I was a DVI and I was a lieutenant, I had a staff member. And what happened is the inmate, warden called me and said, hey, inmate escaped. I said, what, from the minimum outside? No, from the inner perimeter. I said, no, there's no stinking way. We didn't have electric fence, but we had people at every tower. So I put on my clothes, got there, and the dude was working in metal shop during the day. I said, let's go over there because he's probably there. So they searched in the rafters. He had overdose on methamphetamine.
In the rafters?
He was in the rafters of the metal shop. He had butt naked, overdose. He had crap all over himself. He went to the hospital and was in the hospital for 3 days for acute methamphetamine intoxication.
In your humble opinion, I know you're not a doctor, but do you think he went to the rafters to get high, or do you think he got high and then started fucking?
No, his clothes were down on the ground, and
okay, so he got high on the ground and then climbed the rafters.
He crapped all over himself, took his clothes off. Well, anyway, he went to the hospital for 3 days. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna look at this lieutenant, and started looking, and then I looked, and we could get financial information if it was electronic. So I seen he got $6,500 from the money store at Walmart.
The lieutenant did?
Yeah. No, the teacher.
The teacher.
Teacher that was teaching that class. So anyway, push come to shove, I did the investigation, got him on camera because Walmart has some killer surveillance cameras. Really killer. They can follow you all the way to the parking lot. Anyway, got this dude getting running. Then I looked at the people. Oh, those are inmate family members. You know, 2 and 2. And so anyway, I got the inmate come back. I got him to roll. I was real good at getting inmates to roll. So he rolled, and so I called away. Hey, we got enough for a search warrant. We can bust this dude, send him to jail, probably find more dope and find money. Well, I can't do that. That's going to make the department look bad. I said, oh, that's what we do now?
What year was this?
This was 2017, 18. And so I know that the OIA is in cahoots. They protect what the headquarters wants them to protect. Like that thing at SATIF with the confidential memorandum.
And my 2 illegal search warrants.
2 illegal search warrants. You brush that. All that stuff gets brushed under the rug.
So I just got to address the public right now. Office of Internal Affairs is in cahoots with upper management and CDCR, and they do not always do the right thing, period.
No, I mean, I'm not saying they're bad. It's just...
Well, you got bad apples. It's a culture, as they say.
The headquarters controls what they do.
Yeah, it's like the German Gestapo.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. And, yeah, you have some people that get disciplined, you know, that deserve it. Another thing from SATIF, there Popeye Roman, Danny Popeye Roman. You ever heard of him?
Yeah.
Popeye Roman was stabbed to death on the yard. A guy came through from CSP SAC going to LA for court. So he was just there for a short time. So what happens to those guys? Do you know? What happens to those guys when they come in and they're not really classified?
Oh, you go in ADSEG, you go to the hole.
Or they put him in the yard. They put him on the yard, and he's on orientation status. He can't go nowhere but take a shower, and maybe a phone call.
Priority, though, you go to the hole, pending court, and then, put you on the yard.
They put him on the yard, and they approved him to go to the yard. How do you do that? They just said, oh, he's fine. He can go to the yard.
That was one of the suspects in the Popeye murder?
That was the MA member that stabbed one of the...
Alvarado, spy.
That stabbed
Lennox.
Stabbed him to death.
Whoa, holy shit, bro. Hold on. He was housed at CSP SAC. Is out to court at SATIF, and you're either supposed to be in the hole or be kind of slammed for the most.
Yeah.
Oh, but you know what? I will say this: that practice did coming on later on in the future.
But why do you let him go to yard?
No, check this out. I hear you. I was a lieutenant.
Yeah.
We were getting these dudes from Calipat. And this is fucking retarded. And this is why you shouldn't do it. We were getting fucking level 4 GPs from Calipat going out to court in San Diego. And the management did not want any more inmates in ADSEG. That was the orders they got from headquarters. So we literally had AWs, cool AWs too, saying, fuck it, put them on the yard. Fuck it, put them on. And we're like, no, dude, I'm not putting them on the yard.
Yeah.
Because I was a newer lieutenant, and the older ones were telling me, don't do that, man. Put them in the hole.
Yeah.
You don't want to eat that. So I didn't know that dude was out to court.
Yeah. He was out to court, from what I understand.
Wow.
I got a lot of friends all around the department, so I hear stuff and see stuff. And I was still a lieutenant at DBI when that happened. Wow. So that, and then you have the case of the inmate that was transferred, was in cells, but they transferred him to go to the SNY level 2.
He told mixing of the non-designated.
Designated SNY. And they send him, and he tells the counselor where he came from, I forget. I'm going to kill somebody if it's a child molester. And then he goes to the counselor on the yard. I'm going to kill somebody if it's a child molester. Goes to the staff on the yard. So he's in the unit, and there's a child molester watching, I don't know, some kid's show or something. Anyway, he walks up to him and beats him to death with the cane.
What year was this?
Oh, it's probably 20, 21.
And
22.
you were a lieutenant.
And yeah, I wasn't at SATIF. This was at SATIF.
Okay, I looked at the pictures of that incident. He killed 2 child molesters.
And then he walked out, looked around, no staff in the building, and went back and said, you know what, I'm going to get me another one, and went and got another one.
There was brains all over the floor, skull, hair.
It was horrible. So who's responsible? Who's responsible?
Well, in the case of a dead child molester, that's just doing the Lord's work.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you're like, okay, but still,
Right.
If it's threat violence, and he says, I'm going to kill somebody, what do? You just say, oh, okay, whatever, go kill somebody. Like DVI with Jared Lozano.
Correct.
I worked at
So
DVI.
let me ask you an honest question. Honest, fair question. How many deaths could have been prevented if people had just acted? Around ballpark, percentage, fair amount.
Well, here's another thing. I didn't tell you about the other case. So the same ISU cop was talking to a guy. I know. I seen her talk to him. I worked overtime. We worked overtime in the same building. And kept pulling this inmate out. Talked to him. Guy by the name of Flaco Zavala. And one day, I was, I forget where I was at. I wasn't there. I was sick, or I had to have my son sick. But my sergeant says, hey, we're responding to a homicide in Building 2. Guess who it was?
Who?
Flaco Zavala. After the ISU cop had talked to her so much, I guess he was warned, stop. But he was trying to get some of that,
What prison was this?
SATIF. Still talking about SATIF. You think they're all that great? No, they're not. Anyway.
No, I didn't say they were all that great. Well, especially after watching that Fresno Bulldog integration. But I just said there's some pretty fucked up prisons out there. Donovan, CSP SAC,
It's always
Lancaster.
been one of them, and their thing is to retaliate. Well, anyways, Zavala was, dude, it was brutal. You should have seen that weapon made out of, they did the soap thing with the metal shelf and cut it out and then put soap in.
Was it a 2-on-1 or
took paper? It was, well, they don't know, but yeah, it was 2-on-1 because there was 2 or 3 on one because the dude, they were all, transferred, put in ad sig.
Where was the body at? Where was the body
in
found?
the day room?
The body was, they just found the body?
Well, what they did was they responded, and he was there, and the day room was out. And then so later on, there was an inmate. They had a confidential and made that guy unreliable.
Made him unreliable, huh?
Yeah, it made him unreliable. And then those two that sergeant and officer were fired later for some.
That's so weird, dude. I don't know what the hell's going on there now that you mention everything that you're mentioning. It's almost like I don't want to believe you, but I know for a fact that shit like this does happen.
Yeah. And so anyway, that whole thing was part of, and it's funny, in the Costa murder and the Zavala murder, who's the lead investigator? She is. And I even heard a videotape of inmates, and she said, asked an inmate at another prison, why was he killed? Because my cellmate said that it was because of you. I told her, it's because you were talking to him.
What was ultimately her fate? Did she get fired?
No.
She just continued to work?
Continued to work. And then eventually, because of the pressure, she left ISU.
But she continued to remain a peace officer.
Yeah, and then she went to Bravo Yard, I think, or something like that.
So weird, dude.
She resigned. I don't think she was
resigned or retired.
I think she resigned. I don't think she was old enough to retire, but she might have been. I don't know. But that whole thing.
With your experience, I want to bring up a couple of relevant, newsworthy events from your perspective. The escape of level 4 inmate Cesar Hernandez, who escaped from Kern Valley State Prison on a transportation run to the courthouse.
Yeah.
What are some of the deficiencies you observed through that whole incident, or reasons why a level 4 may escape?
It's because to me, that whole thing about the California model marring the lines of officer and inmate will get relaxed. Well, this dude's good with me, so he's cool with me and all that. You forget who they are. To maintain your highest security with him, checking him. Make sure he ain't got no cuff key in his pocket. Make sure he ain't got no cuff key in his mouth. Make sure he ain't got no cuff key in his nose. That type of thing. And to keep that line and keep your ultimate. I will tell you what I did, and I know that the policy has changed. But when I used to take guys out that had any kind of escape history, I said, hey, I would stop in the sally port to give a weapon, come back in. I said, I'm going to tell you something. I shoot and I don't miss. You take off, I'm going to shoot you in the head. I ain't going to miss. I would tell them that. And the youngsters would be like, why did you do that? I said, because I want to take that thing out of his brain.
I don't think that was ever within policy.
Yeah.
No, that wasn't.
Yeah.
You weren't ever able to tell them that before?
Yeah.
Within policy?
Oh,
Were you?
What, back then?
Yeah.
Probably not.
No, of course you were, bro.
But still,
I hear what you're saying.
Was I always perfect in everything I did?
Right. No, because you started off the conversation by saying, hey, man, I know the policy has changed, but this is what I used to tell them. I'm like, no, that was never the policy.
No, that was never the policy. What I'm saying is you can't shoot them now, even if they're running.
Oh, that's what you're saying.
Yeah,
The
you can't shoot them. You can't
changed.
shoot them now.
Okay,
let me give you an example. When I was at... sorry about that.
Funny,
Yeah, I talk fast sometimes. But anyway,
no.
When I was at DVI, I had to escape. So I was the ISU. I was the interim incident commander. So I'm getting everybody to go ready to go out. It was a minimum. And so but here's the thing, you supervisors, don't just send people out. Talk to them, because I told them, okay, here's a scenario. You run across this dude, and he's running across the field. What are you going to do? And the guy says, I'm going to shoot him with the meanie, hit him. I said, are you kidding? How are you going to justify that? He's not a threat to you or anybody else.
Right.
Here's another scenario. It's during the day. Kids are in the playground, and he's jumping the fence to go over to the kids to take a...
To me, it's all how you can articulate it. That is an imminent threat.
I'm going to shoot him because I thought he was going to take a hostage from the kids.
Correct. It's all how you articulate
As long as the kids aren't in the direction of the shot.
Correct.
I said, you have to know this stuff. You have to know. You can't just, oh, there he is, shoot him.
Right, absolutely.
You call on the radio, tell the SSU and other people where the dude's at.
Right.
Yeah.
Damn, that shit made me laugh, bro, talking about the policy change.
It's a policy. Well, no, I meant,
Correct. Now, another notable incident was a recent murder at Salinas Valley State Prison where two norteños brutally murdered a victim for 2.5 minutes, and the Mini 14 was never utilized. What are some issues that you see may have arisen there?
Well, you have a job. Okay, I understand that you're gonna go through an investigation, and you're gonna go to DFIT. You're gonna have all that kind of stuff. But if you don't know, I'm gonna use this Mini 14. If you don't know if this happens or that happens, if you don't know, don't get up there. Do not be in the gun. That's awful, because that dude was brutally murdered. I'm sure his family had to get his body back.
They did.
So
they did.
Not that I love inmates or anything.
No,
it's just you got a job.
It's preservation of life, and that's in the DOM.
And it's just but you got to know ahead of time. If you're not gonna do that, then don't get in the stinking gun. But I know, hey, I'm a sergeant, and I got this I just don't have picos anymore. Pies. I have this new cop. I need to fill a spot. I'm just
it's all about filling spots and running program.
Yeah, and that's, to me, if you were on the street, you're not going to send some rookie to Compton, or if by himself. He's going to have a training sergeant, or a training officer, and he's going to, especially at night. You don't just send anybody anywhere.
That was a good analogy, because what you have right now are not only rookies in Compton, but like rookies in Skid Row, in Compton. Everybody's getting fucking crazy, and they don't have a clue.
Yeah, that should be like that with the department. Hey, don't put somebody there if they don't have the experience.
They're more concerned about having daddy-daughter dances.
Yeah.
They're more concerned about not safety and security.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just...
Well, fast forward, you were a sergeant at the academy. What was the lesson plan like then? What was the curriculum versus did they give you guys the authority as sergeants to free ball it and shoot from the hip?
Okay, so you give them what they need to graduate.
Okay.
Okay, so PCA 32.
Post.
And you got to some of the use of force, report writing, different things like that. Things that they had to test on. But then you give them your experience. You fit it in. You don't just get up there, here's a PowerPoint.
Right.
And, read the whole thing. You tell them, hey, this happens. This is your effective communication. This is how I give them instances. I had a guy that was, going to assault me, and I just talked to him. That type of thing. And I maintained my distance, and I was ready to fight. And then I let the gunner know, hey, I got a little thing going on right here. And so I would give him.
Do you know what was a huge problem? And probably around the time frame, what year did you teach at the academy?
2013 to 2015.
Okay. Definitely after your time frame, this around 2018, we were getting brand new cadets from the academy who were getting punched in the mouth by inmates and still trying to verbally de-escalate. This was plaguing the department. And we kept telling them, what are you guys doing? What? Well, they told us at the academy they want us to verbally de-escalate. I said, fuck no.
And so when I was at EVI, as a lieutenant, they were hitting the cell. My cops, 4 of them. I was with the sergeant in the day room. And not to speak, at DVI, I had the best crew. About 3 or 4 of them are SSU agents now, but they were awesome, every single one of them. And but anyway, they went up. It was an Asian cell that they supposedly had phones and dope or something. And I was watching, and I always went with my troops. I didn't sit in my office and drink coffee. So anyway, I could see him like jawing at this dude. And I said, something's going on. So I ran up those steps, left my sergeant behind. But I ran up those steps, and I told the inmate, it was on the top bunk with one cuff. And the officer they were trying to order him. I just said, dude, cuff up, or we're going to pull you off that bunk. So I cuffed him up, and we back to the office. But I just told him, look, what was that all about? Well, we're supposed to verbally de-escalate. I said, we had a investigator in the office. I said, hey, when you're on the street and you get to cuff one dude, cuff his arm, and he starts to fight, where does he go? He said, on the ground. I said, I don't care. Pull him off that bunk. If they ever run into it, you have every single thing in the use of force criteria. He's an attacker because he's got one cuff. He's resisting. You're trying to effect custody. You're giving him orders. Everything's there.
Check. That's
check.
That's what you have to do is mentally check the blocks to use force. Is he hitting these fucking marks? Yes or no? Use it.
Pull him down. I don't care if he hits his head or whatever. Here's the thing. And I know you don't like him, but Ron Davis one time was in
Go ahead.
When I was at VSP, we were doing use of force. I was ISU sergeant, so I was sitting in use of force. And the administrators were saying, well, yeah, but the inmate broke his nose. I love Ron. I just do. But anyway, he said, really? He said, was the force reasonable and necessary? They said, yeah, that's all I care about. I don't care what happened to him. If he broke his nose, broke his face, broke his arm, it doesn't matter.
I'm shocked.
As long as it's reasonable and necessary. That guy, to me, when I had him,
he said that.
When I had him, when he was with me at VSP, he was awesome. Him and Rick Field, they were both.
As we wind down, and I told you in the beginning, we're going to discuss, do people change when in the department? What rank was Ron Davis at that point?
He was a warden.
He was a warden.
Yeah.
Okay. because when he was an associate director, he sat right next to me and told us, you guys cannot put handcuffs on inmates if they tell you they do not want handcuffs to be put on them.
Well, I don't know.
No, that happened.
Yeah.
This is me.
Yeah.
He was right here.
Yeah.
No, that definitely did happen.
People could definitely change. People could change. I mean, the secretary we just had, I think he just got worse and worse. Not McCumber, rough deals. He just got
correct.
Okay, so anybody out there, go look at the real Chit, because he's got some interesting information about Ralph Diaz and the AW that I was involved with. Same thing.
So what advice do you have to correctional officers, being men or women, humans, when it comes to the job and or the way you conduct yourself? Should you be consistent through and through?
Yes.
Or should you change up like some of the people were talking?
Here's the thing. All the way to lieutenant, when I talked to the officers, and just the same as I did when I was, an officer, because I wanted them to learn. They would come through with cossets, and I would stop them in the rotunda at DVI and say, okay, where is your loyalty? I want to know. I know God, your family. No, I'm talking about the department. They said, well, my partner, my sergeant, the warden. I said, absolutely not. I said, you're going to lift your hand and swear at the academy to uphold the laws of the state of California and the Constitution. Those are the two things you're loyal to. Because what happens if your sergeant, your partner, the secretary, the warden turn dirty, and they're doing things to violate those two things? Because Title 15 is law, right?
Penal code is law.
And penal code is law. So you have to know if they're doing something or asking you to do something that is not right, don't do it. Will you be under investigation for insubordination? Maybe.
Oh, you will.
And the reason I came, 2 reasons. To glorify Jesus Christ.
Thank you.
Because he's my everything, and he has helped me along the way. It's actually been the one to do things. And then 2, the safety of the people that work in the department. And maybe another thing. We have people out there that pay taxes to an entity that's supposed to do the right thing. We should expect that from them. And if you just sit on your hands, that's what's happened. People just sit on their hands and they don't get active. Write your congressman, write your senator, hey, I'm not going to vote for you anymore if you keep letting this stuff go on. Gavin Newsom, man, he ain't going to change.
Correct.
That's the only way the department's going to change. If we change the governor, well, first of all, it's a spiritual battle.
Facts.
It's a spiritual battle. And prayer, having people turn, a lot more young people are turning to God, a lot. And I think things will begin to change, but we need a new governor. We need a new organization for the department. They need to restructure it. They need to say, look, we're going to hold everybody to the highest integrity. They need to take internal affairs and put it on another entity, because with no connection to the department, so that from an OA to the secretary, they can do everything the same as far as discipline. But right now, I don't do that. I don't do that. How do you get an AW that does the right thing at SATIF and says, look, they're going to get killed if they come on the yard? And then you put a plan of ops with ambulances on standby, because you know it's going to be a mass casualty event. How do you do that? And then in that AW, after she does the right thing, you put her in the mailroom.
So first of all, you hit the nail on the head with everything you just said right now, man. That was perfect and immaculate. But right now you started touching about the Fresno Bulldog integration at SATIF. You're telling me there was an AW that spoke up and spoke against the integration and therefore found herself in the mailroom?
From what I heard, told the warden, hey, this is going to happen. Just brush it under the rug. Okay. From what I heard, this person sent emails to the headquarters. Connie Gibson, your favorite.
It's another winner in my book.
Yeah. And so that came back down on her. And here's how it did. When the whole plan was to have them come in escorted with officers on the yard. Why would you do that, for one thing? And why would you do it the way, just let them all in? Take some of them or escort them to the building. Then you have a small incident.
Real quick.
Not all of them get
Real
killed.
quick, and I don't mean to laugh. What did you think when you saw video footage of the Fresno Bulldog just get in, just on their own right there?
I'm like, yeah, here, go, hey, you're gonna go. It's like you watch Gladiator?
Yeah. That was a
Yeah.
great
Oh,
movie.
did he walk into the thing all by himself?
That's fucked up, man.
Yeah.
That's not right.
He walked in. Oh, anyway, they walk in and they're looking around. Well, I'll go this way. Well, there's inmates over there. We'll go this way. Well, anyway, what made me laugh, not laugh.
No,
but,
not laugh because it's not funny.
But
it's crazy.
Shake my head was if you watched the whole thing, the gas and everything didn't come till all the inmates were gone and they just gassed the Bulldogs. But
Man.
well, anyway, how that happened is nobody escorted them. The lieutenant said, hey, look, just let him in. So the lieutenant actually changed the plan of operation.
I will say this, though. Even had they been escorted, they still would have kicked it off because we experienced
Well, and then the officers would have been in the way. You and I know that. I don't know if you ever seen the video of them escorting the Bulldog in Salinas Valley, and there was 30 Sureños, and
I did not see that video.
They rushed. This was like when I started.
I did see that
They
video.
rushed the Bulldog, and they told the officers, "Get out of the way! Get out of the way!" What do you do, man? They tried, but
Right.
they still got the dude. But you don't want your officers in the way getting hurt. But here's what you do in that situation. Anybody, you take, say you got 3 of those Bulldogs that were housed in this building. I don't know if they were all housed. I don't know if they're all housed together or whatever. You take them and escort them. Then if it kicks off, it's just those. They say, okay, you know what? We're not continuing to do this because they're going to get attacked.
Yeah, then you have enough reason to say, hey, you guys are going to ADSEC pending safety concerns, possible safety concerns.
Yeah. Well, that should have been done from the beginning
Facts.
because you have a confidential information.
Well,
They're making weapons. It's going to be the Norteños and Sureños.
and it's a conspiracy to commit attempted murder and/or murder or to batter other inmates.
And we know what's going to happen, so we'll just put a couple of ambulances on standby. How do you do that? Well, anyway, and then from what I heard, a lot of the people, administrators, were in ISU room watching the live cameras like they're watching stinking WWE. You know what I mean? And then the captain asked somebody, that's what I heard, that, hey, you want me to put the yard down there? No, everybody's grouping. Nah, let it go. It's going to happen. Let it happen. Needs to happen. Whatever. So
That is wild, man. Well, I want to thank you for traveling abroad all the way over here, man, sitting down and conversing with me. I would have loved to touch more on your experience from working the line as a sergeant, lieutenant, academy, but I felt like we needed to give all that experience, dude, of lessons for these youngsters.
lessons and just from the people who are out there at the academy, learn what you need to learn to. I have gone to speak like 2 or 3 times.
Nice.
To my old cadets company. I just told them, hey, do what you need to do to graduate, but have the mindset that you're going to go in every day and be alert, learn, ask cops, read the Title 15, get to know it. It saved me a few times in my career, and you know, just be a good partner. Get there early for your relief. You know, sometimes you get relieved late, but don't change your attitude about it. And I prayed every day. I would go with the gun and pray every day. Pray for my partner's safety. Pray for mine. And, you know, was I a perfect man? No, I'm not. But I still love people I have a lot of friends that are still in the department. And I have cadets they've graduated with me and people that I've run across. And I care about them. And I want to see them succeed. And, You know, if you ever need any advice, you need to get a hold of me. One of the things I would leave the cadets is my phone number when I spoke, you know, even lately. And I said, call me. If you feel like committing suicide or something's getting too overwhelming, call me. I'm retired. You know, I deal with goats and chickens. But call me, because I had some really good friends commit suicide because it was too much for them.
No, I hear you, man. If you're comfortable with it, I'll link your Instagram or whatever you let me link so people can get a hold of you.
That's absolutely the thing. And this world is not going to get any better. It's getting worse.
Yeah.
And there's corruption everywhere. The thing is, Jesus said something. Put your treasure in heaven so nobody can touch it.
Facts.
Clothes we have, money we have can go. But if you send your life ahead to heaven, to Jesus Christ, that life's forever. And maybe things won't change around you because it's corruption.
Right.
It's going to get worse. It's like a piece of meat that's rotting. But your life can be better.
Facts.
Your life can overcome all of that.
Well, I want to thank you, Kenny, for coming, man. It was perfect timing. I had a pleasure conversing with you, dude. Dropping knowledge as always. And you're always welcome to come back and visit me.
No, I would love to. I don't know how long it's been, but I have so much more I could share.
Absolutely. So we're going to save it for next time, man.
Yeah.
But thank you. That was 2 hours. I told you that was going to go fast. So there you guys have it, folks. I keep doing it for you guys, man. And thanks to people like Kenny that are coming all the way over here and giving their experiences to help others, just as God would have wanted. So if you like what you saw, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Love you. Keep pushing forward.
Unhinged mind, Hector's legend engraved. Living life raw, never been tamed. From the hood to the pen, truth and tales bend. Hector Bravo unhinged, story never ends.